in July. Let's talk a little Cavs, guys.
Yes.
There have been plenty of trade rumors circulating around the league. We saw a blockbuster happen yesterday between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Charlotte Hornets for LaMelo Ball and Naz Reid.
What do you think about that trade, by the way?
I actually like it for both sides.
Really?
In all honesty, I do.
I do too.
We can talk about that at the end of this, but I want to get into the first part of the conversation we have to hit on first. The Cavs.
Good thing we're not going to hit on the first part of the conversation. Second.
Well, you were leading us down a path to do that. But I pivoted and steered us back on track.
The earth's back.
The Cavs have been acting since the trade deadline like Evan Mobley's an untouchable asset. Unmovable. There were reports, I've heard from many, on top of the national reporting that the Milwaukee Bucks would have traded Giannis to Cleveland for Evan Mobley. But the Cavs, without a guarantee that Giannis would resign, said, we're not giving up Evan. There was a report earlier this week that Boston may have interest in Evan Mobley in some sort of Jaylen Brown trade. We talked about that a lot yesterday. The reports now are saying the Cavs have no interest in parting ways with Evan Mobley for Jaylen Brown. They seem to be operating as if Evan Mobley is an untouchable asset. But Earl, should he be?
No, not at all, bro. I know it, you know it. And I look at this situation, and I think Kobe is living in his fears a little bit. I think about when he traded Darius Garland, Kobe had a very personal relationship with Darius Garland. They kind of started this journey together. From my understanding, he lived with Koby Altman for a little bit once he was first drafted. And so to move on for a player like that, you get James Harden in return. He probably won't admit this out loud, but when he looked out there in the playoffs and he saw how James Harden was playing in certain situations, he probably didn't think he got great return on investment when he made the trade. And I think that when you think about the teams that has called and inquired about Evan Mobley this offseason, allegedly OKC might have been interested for a package, Boston Celtics, and who was the other team? Milwaukee, right? When you look at Boston and OKC in particular, you think about quality of organization. Two quality organizations. Yeah. And so what if Kobe got a little cold feet and he's like, man, if the Celtics or the Thunder want Evan Mobley, what is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm missing? The issue is I'm not really sure if Evan Mobley is ever going to develop into that player that I once thought he was. And what's the ceiling of Evan Mobley? Can he even reach his full potential here as a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers? So many different factors play into why he should be more open-minded to trading Evan Mobley, but ultimately, my gut feeling tells me he's not going nowhere.
Go ahead, G.
Yeah, listen, I get that when you look at those numbers, and I'm just not a numbers guy. I'm an impact guy. When you look at Evan Mobley's game, sometimes you fall in love with the way you think somebody can be rather than what they've shown you they are right now. When I look at his game, and I strictly go by his game, you take a look at the three-point shooting, it's about 30%. He's not a guy that's ever going to be able to, make shots off the dribble. He's not going to be, let's get to my spot, pull up for here. Let's get to my spot, pull up over this guy. That's not his game. He it's more of a set shot if you can swing it to him, but even if it's late in the shot clock, it's hit or miss with that. Evan Mobley is an elite defender. I'll give him that. But when it comes to his offensive game, he's not going to be able to put the ball on the floor multiple times. He's not going to be a person that you ever have to just really worry. If Evan Mobley killed you, he'd hit 24. If Evan Mobley had a game, you're like, dang, Mobley was balling today. It's like 24 and like 12. That is not something you can just have as your peak. If you want to win a championship, that has to be his bottom ceiling. That has to be the floor. That got to be like, oh, Evan's giving us 24 regardless. And right now, he's giving you that 16, 17. I heard a stat from Chris Fedor, and he said that Evan Mobley in 18 playoff games, was a minus person on the floor. He was a minus against Toronto. He was a minus against the Pistons and was minus against New York. Now think about that.
The whole starting lineup was, though, because of how bad they got beat by New York. Like
in the New York series, they were all.
That's not totally fair.
But the other two series, they won those other two series.
They did, and they had to go 7 games.
Yeah.
So my thing is, you can keep imagining that Evan Mobley's going to get you here. But at certain points in time, you got to understand you are what you are. Donovan Mitchell, and this is the key I keep saying, Donovan Mitchell, by far, is still head and shoulders better than all the players on the team. and that's a problem.
Yeah. Here's the good news is that Mike's premise here is wrong. And Evan Mobley will most certainly be traded in the next few weeks. There's no doubt about it, because what the Cavs are doing is, okay, there's interest from multiple teams on Evan Mobley. So he's figuring out what trade's the best trade for the Cavs. He knows he can't run it back. Once you traded Darius Garland for James Harden,
It was over.
you were on the clock.
It's over.
That's it. We don't even know if James Harden could completely go off the cliff this year.
Oh,
Completely.
if I had to bet, will he have a better season or worse season last year? I'm betting worse.
He's going into year 18.
100%. LeBron is one of one. Most other guys at James Harden's age are cratering, starting to crater. You made that trade. When you made that trade, you said, we got to win now. Not 3 years. What do I got to keep Mobley? So they have one good player 3 years from now when everybody else is gone? What's the point of that? So I think of course they're not going to put it out there that they're willing to trade him, because that would weaken their position. And right now they're in a position of strength. I know it's a totally different franchise. Generally the Cavs are run much better than the Browns. But the Browns, for how long did Andrew Berry say, we're not trading him? Myles Garrett's going to be in the lifelong Brown. And then, of course, eventually you were in a situation and you got the right offer and you made the deal. And the Cavs are going to do the same thing. I'll be shocked if he's not traded. The only way I see him not getting traded is if they somehow trade Donovan Mitchell instead, which I doubt. But I think one of those two has to go.
Or that they make a philosophy adjustment, because the moment that you traded for Donovan Mitchell, developing Evan Mobley was no longer the priority. And the issue is you can't exploit the things that he does well on a consistent basis based on how this team is built. In my opinion, Evan Mobley is at his best when he's going downhill, when he's playing downhill. Mike, I don't know exactly what game it was. It was probably the last month of the season. And opponent, whatever. We were playing the Utah Jazz. And it's not about like anything but the style of play for consistently for that game.
Yeah.
I think he took 15 shots. He took all 15 shots in the paint close to the basket. He was blocking shots. He was rebounding. Every single play, if you go back and just watch that game, he was getting downhill, getting to his spots, and it just seems like that's when he's the most confident and that's when he's the most impactful.
Yeah.
The Cavs don't, in my opinion, want to play through Evan Mobley because of how the roster is built. So if you're not going to play through Evan Mobley and exploit what he does well, then you might as well trade him for somebody else that can complement the players you do want to play through.
And to your point, G, you're right. Of course, Evan Mobley's great defensively, but he's not an impact player on offense. Jaylen Brown, who's the most likely guy they're going to get, is an impact player on offense. You saw it. Like, obviously, he was always a very good offensive player, but then when Jason Tatum wasn't there, then he just took it up to superstar level. Where Evan Mobley is an average offensive player, and when other guys are not there, he takes it up to good. That's a big difference.
And it's another big reason that I think about it, because the Jaylen Brown, I haven't really come out and been definitive on okay, what do I think about Jaylen Brown? The thing that I am definitive about is, at this point in his career, James Harden cannot be your primary ball handler for 90% of the time, because he just, as again, Father Time is undefeated. He's lost a step.
Yeah, maybe two.
He can, we all done lost one.
Yeah.
But just for him to get to the basket, it's getting tougher and tougher. They're locking him up. He's had problems with turnovers. So if you get Jaylen Brown, guess what you have? You have another guy where you can demote or move James Harden down. And now he does have the ability to get a shot when he needs to, but he has a better chance of doing that as the third option. Right. Now, if you got Donovan Mitchell, who at that point becomes, I would say, your second option, and Jaylen Brown, who's a guy that can get, now you got three guys that if something breaks down, you can go ahead and they can get their shot. And if they keep Jared Allen, they still have a person who, guess what, shoots a high percentage from the field, 60-70%. He's still a defender. He's not Evan Mobley, but you could play one big with four guards, and now you can compete instead of doubling down on the two big position and having Mobley and Allen and clogging things up. I think it makes them a better team. I don't know, does it make them an instant championship team? I don't know that, but I think offensively they become a much better cohesive unit if they do that.
I think it gives them their best chance
Yes.
to be a championship team.
Yes.
I do too.
Because Jaylen Brown is the only offensive threat they've ever had with Donovan. They would have ever had with Donovan Mitchell. That's just as good, if not better, than him.
And actually,
as an all-around offensive player.
We think now McNuggets. We talk about the defense from that standpoint. Adding Jaylen Brown, who's a really good wing defender as well. Jaylen Brown and Jared Allen is a good wing protector. How much of a step backwards would they take defensively if you swap Mobley for Jaylen Brown out?
Pretty big. Brown, not the same wing defender he was a couple of years ago. Like, he can still turn it on for stretches, but he's not, 48 minutes a night.
Yeah, but who
locking up
cares
other guys.
48 minutes a night? All that matters is the playoffs.
G asked me a question. I was just giving
No,
you
but
the
I'm
answer.
just making the point that you say you can still turn it on in the
Shut your
playoffs.
mouth.
That's when you turn it
The
on.
reality of the Mobley-Allen combination, though, is as good as James and Donovan can be offensively, they are not good defensively.
Right.
They don't have wings. Mobley and Allen cover up for so much more than we. And once again, I would do the trade. For the record, I would do the trade.
Yeah.
But they cover up for so much of the inability of the Cavs' backcourt defensively that we know it's bad. It could look so much worse if those two weren't there to help cover up and be a Band-Aid. Would it take a step back, G? Yes. Is Jaylen Brown, outside of Dean Wade, probably their best wing defender or would be their best wing defender? Also, yes. But
Mike,
having
ultimately,
Mobley does clean up a lot of their messes.
Ultimately, the offensive upgrade is bigger than the defensive downgrade, or more impactful than the impact loss on the defensive side. Don't you think?
Yeah, I've said before. I think it'd be a
it would be
hideous
smart
fit of the three together. But at the end of the day, in the playoffs, we just saw you need guys who can get buckets in one-on-one situations in the playoffs. I don't have a ton of confidence in Evan Mobley being able to do that at this stage of his career. That's what Jaylen Brown does best, which is why at the end of the day, even though I don't necessarily love the trade, I would still accept it if it was presented.
Is there another trade? Like, let's say the Cavs did trade
Mobley for Brown.
Is there another trade they could make where they could get like another wing player who's a good defensive player who, doesn't have to be great offensively?
The two deals,
Strus,
regardless, and that's one of them, regardless of the Mobley situation, regardless of the LeBron, two deals that I want to see the Cavs make that I think make sense for both teams are two deals we've talked about. Strus for PJ Washington. It makes sense for the Mavericks. It makes sense for the Cavs. Yeah. I want to see that regardless of anything else on the roster. And Dennis Schroeder for Dorian Finney-Smith.
How big is PJ Washington? He's really big.
6'8", 240.
And how good a defender is he?
Once again, a little older now, but he's a legitimate wing, solid defender. He's a better defensive player than he is an offensive player.
All right. If Evan Mobley is a 10 as a defender, and James Harden and Donovan Mitchell are what, a 3?
Sure.
Oh, well, no, I'm asking you. Somewhere around there, maybe lower?
Yeah. 3.
A 1?
Nah.
A 2.
Harden's good in certain matchups.
All right, so let's just say they're both 3s.
They're 3s.
Fine.
They're 3s. It's fine.
What are PJ Washington and Jaylen Brown on that scale?
Brown, I mean, you go back to the 2023 finals or 24 finals when the Celtics won.
Yeah.
Like, Brown took it as a personal offense and locked up Luka, guarded him 94 feet, and made Luka's life miserable.
Don't you think he can still do that in the playoffs?
He has the ability to when he's asked to, and for certain possessions, you certainly would ask him, but he wasn't carrying a gigantic offensive load at that same time as well. Because
right, but he wouldn't have to carry as much a load as he did last year in Boston.
No, but it's less. It'd be more than he was asked to in 2024, less than he was asked to last year.
Yeah.
Brown can still turn it. He's also 2 years younger. Brown's probably a 6'7", and Washington's in the same range, 6'7". Yeah.
In terms of
but Washington could guard. By the way, Washington could guard bigger.
We got kids.
Washington could guard up. Jaylen guards down.
So is who's the better defender of the two of them?
Washington's probably a little more versatile. Brown's
but
probably
they're
one
both
possession
pretty good defenders.
Yeah, they're both.
Obviously, nobody's
above
Mobley on defense.
Yes.
None of those guys are. But
I think if I look at it, I think a lot of this stuff, and this is fascinating because more than basketball and anything, basketball players are emotional. Like, they just, like, it's all about, people think about stuff in basketball that nobody else thinks about. Like, who is it your team? Whose team is it?
Yeah.
My legacy.
I
if
know,
we won a championship. Like the thing
That's
is,
only in basketball.
it's only in hoops.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, if Jaylen Brown comes and shows up, is Donovan Mitchell being like, oh, yes, your team. You're the best guy on the team.
You know, Donovan to me, and I think we all love Donovan. We were critical of him in this postseason, I think, fairly. But obviously, I don't know the man personally. But my impression of him and everything I've heard about him is he is the most low maintenance, low ego superstar there is.
He's one of the most.
He wants to win.
He's one of the most selfless leaders I've ever encountered.
Right?
And
you guys are at the games every 10 seconds.
And just in conversations that I've had the opportunity to have with him, like off the record, he used words like thankful, humble, appreciate these guys, allowing me to lead them. And it's like, like you said, low maintenance, but very, very, one of those type of guys.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not describing it like right, but he's just one of those guys to where it's selfless.
Yeah, I agree.
For him to be a superstar player, he don't think about his own numbers. He don't think about what's best for him. He's willing to make whatever sacrifices he has to make if it means the Cleveland Cavaliers can win. And he says that on the record and off the record, and I honestly believe him.
Yeah, I do too, Mike. I know you know him a little bit. Right?
Donovan is exactly what you want a superstar to be.
Yeah, he would not be like uptight about if Jaylen Brown's the best player on the team or not.
Jaylen Brown's one of his best friends, by the way.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, they're very, very
interesting. How have you not said that before?
We talked about it.
We've talked about it.
Oh, I must have not been here that day.
I think it also, as we throw a bow on it, I think it also is tough for him. I think it would be tough for him to go to the front office and say, "I love Evan, I love Jared, I love these guys," and then be like, "But we got to make a move."
Yeah,
I think for his personality type, that might be a little difficult. And I think it might actually have to come from the owner.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, rather than him. Because I think he would just say, just stay pat. But no, we can't do that.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back in the first hour, we did the first half of Fence Riders. We got 4 more for you coming up next on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports.